You think it's just a seasoning, a simple white crystal you sprinkle on your food. You are profoundly wrong. This mineral has built empires and torn them down. It has paid armies, preserved the dead, and sparked bloody revolutions. It's not just salt. It's the engine of history, the unseen architect of our world. And for most of human existence, it was worth more than gold. This is the story of white gold. Before we talk about empires, we have to talk about biology. Your own body is a saltwater ocean. Every thought you have, every move you make is powered by tiny electrical signals. And those signals are carried by sodium ions, the core component of salt. Without it, your nerves wouldn't fire, your muscles wouldn't contract, your heart would stop beating. We are hardwired to crave it because we are hardwired to die without it. Early humans got their salt from the meat they ate. But once we turned to agriculture, to a diet of grains and vegetables, we created a crisis. We had to find salt. This desperate biological need is the starting point for everything that follows. And if you want to understand the hidden forces that shape our world, take a second to subscribe. You won't see history the same way again. So, we need it to live. But salt's first great power in civilization wasn't about keeping people alive, but about keeping their food from spoiling. Before refrigeration, food was a battle against time. A big hunt or a good harvest could rot before it could be eaten. Salt changed the game. Through a process called osmosis, it draws water out of microbial cells, killing the bacteria and fungi that cause decay. Suddenly, food wasn't just for today, it could be stored for winter. It could be transported over long distances. For the first time, you could feed an army on the march or a city during a siege. The ancient Egyptians were masters of this. They didn't just use salt to preserve fish from the Nile, they used it to preserve their pharaohs for eternity, believing it was essential for the journey to the afterlife. No civilization understood the strategic power of salt better than Rome. The empire's first great road wasn't for conquering armies, it was for transporting salt. It was called the Via Salaria, the Salt Road. This was Rome's lifeline. The city's legions, the most formidable fighting force in the ancient world, were provisioned with salted pork and fish. And how were they paid? Sometimes with salt itself. The word salary comes directly from the Latin salarium, which was the payment given to a Roman soldier to buy salt. The expression "not worth his salt" originates from this very practice. A soldier who didn't perform well wasn't worthy of his salt allowance. Rome controlled the salt pans, and by doing so, they controlled the food supply, the army, and ultimately the known world.
But Rome wasn't the first to get rich from salt. Long before the Caesars, in the heart of the Austrian Alps, a prehistoric community discovered a mountain made of salt. This was Hallstatt. From as early as 1500 BC, these miners dug deep into the earth with bronze and antler tools, creating a subterranean world of tunnels and chambers. The salt they extracted was a source of unbelievable wealth. They traded it across Europe for amber from the Baltic, tin from Britain, and wine from the Mediterranean. The incredible preservation properties of the salt mines have even given us their bodies, their tools, their leather backpacks, perfectly preserved for millennia. They were Europe's first salt barons, a forgotten dynasty whose power was built entirely on controlling this one essential mineral.
Fast forward a couple of thousand years. A city built on water, with no natural resources, somehow becomes the richest and most powerful trading hub in Europe. How? The answer, again, is salt. Venice was built on a marshy lagoon, perfect for creating salt pans through evaporation. The Venetians didn't just produce salt, they weaponized it. They used their powerful navy to disrupt or destroy the salt works of their rivals. They established a state monopoly, forcing their trading partners to buy salt from them at inflated prices. This salt monopoly was the foundation of the Venetian Empire. The profits funded their fleets, their art, their architecture.
The splendor of Venice that we see today was built, quite literally, on a foundation of salt. While Venice controlled the Mediterranean, another salt-powered empire rose in the cold waters of the north. In the Middle Ages, the Baltic Sea teemed with herring, but herring spoils fast. The Hanseatic League, a powerful confederation of merchant guilds, saw an opportunity. They controlled the massive salt deposits at Lüneburg, Germany. They created an industrial-scale operation. Ships would carry German salt to the fishing grounds, where thousands of workers would gut, salt, and pack the herring into barrels on the spot. This salted herring became the staple food of Northern Europe, feeding populations through long winters. The League's control over both the salt and the fish gave them a stranglehold on the entire region's food supply, making them an economic and political superpower for centuries. In Poland, the story of salt goes even deeper. The Wieliczka salt mine is a place unlike anywhere on Earth. For over 700 years, generations of miners carved out a breathtaking underground world. But they didn't just extract salt, they carved chapels to pray in, complete with altars, statues of saints, and even chandeliers made from refined salt crystals. It's a subterranean cathedral, a testament to the profound importance of this mineral to the Polish kingdom. The revenues from the Wieliczka mine accounted for up to a third of the entire state treasury, funding castles, universities, and military campaigns. It was the crown jewel of Poland, a source of immense wealth and national pride, all hidden deep beneath the earth. If salt could build kingdoms, a tax on it could break one. In pre-revolutionary France, the monarchy imposed one of the most hated taxes in history, the gabelle. It was a tax on salt. But it wasn't just a tax, it was a state-enforced monopoly. Private production of salt was illegal, and every person over the age of 8 was legally required to buy a certain amount of salt each year at a price fixed by the government, a price that could be up to 20 times its actual value. Smugglers, known as fauxonniers, were hunted down and brutally punished. This wasn't just an economic burden, it was a daily humiliation. The gabelle became a symbol of the monarchy's tyranny and oppression, and the demand for its abolition was a key rallying cry that fueled the fires of the French Revolution. Across the Atlantic, salt played a surprisingly critical role in another revolution. When the American colonies declared independence, Great Britain used its navy to create a blockade. They didn't just block guns and ammunition, they blocked salt. The British knew that without salt, the Continental Army couldn't preserve its rations. They couldn't cure the leather for their boots or saddles. The entire war effort would grind to a halt. Salt became a strategic commodity. The Continental Congress offered grants to anyone who could find ways to produce it, leading to a boom in small-scale salt works along the coast. The struggle for salt was a hidden front in the War for Independence, a desperate fight for the one resource needed to keep the revolution alive. Perhaps the most powerful example of salt as a symbol of resistance came in 1930 in British-ruled India. Much like the French monarchy, the British Raj held a monopoly on salt production and taxed it heavily, making it illegal for Indians to freely collect or sell their own salt. Mahatma Gandhi saw this not just as an economic injustice, but as an attack on the very sustenance of the Indian people. He organized the Salt March, a 240-mile trek to the Arabian Sea. It was an act of non-violent civil disobedience. When he reached the coast and picked up a piece of natural salt, he was technically breaking the law. This simple act inspired millions of Indians to do the same, sparking a nationwide movement that exposed the illegitimacy of British rule and became a turning point in India's struggle for independence. Let's rewind a bit to the age of exploration. What fueled the settlement of North America? It wasn't just a quest for gold or religious freedom. It was fish, specifically cod. The Grand Banks off Newfoundland were home to an almost unimaginable quantity of cod, but it was only valuable if it could get back to Europe. The solution was salt. Basque and Portuguese fishermen had perfected the art of salting and drying cod right on their ships or on shore. This sacred cod was a cheap, high-protein food that could feed the growing populations of Europe and the enslaved people working on sugar plantations in the Caribbean. The entire transatlantic economy, the infamous triangle trade, was underpinned by this trade in salted fish. It was a brutal, difficult industry, but it's what built the first economies of New England and Atlantic Canada. For most of history, salt had two main uses: seasoning and preserving. Then, in the 19th century, everything changed. The Industrial Revolution brought a new understanding of chemistry. Scientists learned how to break salt, sodium chloride, apart into its two powerful components. Suddenly, salt wasn't just a foodstuff, it was a fundamental raw material for a new chemical industry. Chlorine became essential for bleaching paper and textiles and for purifying water. Sodium was used to create soda ash, a key ingredient for making glass, soaps, and detergents. The demand for salt exploded. It was no longer just about feeding people. It was about building the very fabric of the modern industrial world.
Today, we produce hundreds of millions of tons of salt every year. But guess what? Less than 10% of it ends up on your dinner table. The vast majority goes to industry. Over half of all salt produced is used for de-icing roads in winter, making transportation safer. It's used in water softeners, in the production of plastics like PVC, and in countless other manufacturing processes. We've become so good at producing it that it's become one of the cheapest and most abundant commodities on the planet. We've forgotten its power. We see it as a minor ingredient, a simple condiment. We've lost sight of the fact that this humble mineral dictated the course of empires, the fate of armies, and the wealth of nations for thousands of years. From the firing of your own neurons to the roads you drive on, salt is there. It's the unseen architect, the silent partner in human history. It's so fundamental, so ubiquitous, that we've become blind to its influence. But every time you reach for the shaker, remember the Via Salaria, the gabelle, the salt march. You're not just holding a seasoning. You're holding the currency of civilization, a substance that shaped our past and continues to build our present in ways we can barely imagine. What other everyday object has a secret history this profound? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching.